Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding podcast. Today we have Marla and a bunch of guys. We have Chris and Kerry and Craig and Ted and Daniel and Dave and Lou. Good to have everyone. 75th verse of the Tao Te Ching will be our conversation for today. A couple of announcements. Craig, we have our Facebook group. How are we doing there? I know you're keeping an eye on that for us. We appreciate it.
We're doing great in that. We have people that know what they're talking about now. We're up to 141 members. There's been a few people joined this week, so welcome everybody. If you want to get involved in the meetings, then join the Tao of Our Understanding Facebook page. There's a link to the meeting, which is 4 p.m. Eastern, I think it is, buddy. So 4 p.m. Eastern on a Thursday. If you can make it, join in. If not, if there's anything that you want to comment on, or if you've got any other revelations that you can enlighten us with about any of the readings that we're doing, then please post it into the group. We've had some fantastic contributions this week, dealing with last week's episode on benevolence. So it's great to see some engagement going on in the group.
Thank you, sir. Talk about our nightly 9 p.m. Eastern online meeting of AA. That meeting's still going strong. It's 9 p.m. Eastern every night, 6 nights a week. It's a open discussion. Saturday night, it's a speaker meeting. You can find information about that and a lot of other resources at buddyc.org, plus all the books that we talk about. I believe almost all of those I have on the front page there, buddyc.org, so you can easily find them. Other information there. So put that to use, guys. Lots of good resources. So the 75th verse of the Tao Te Ching. Marla, you want to read for us, dear?
Here we go. All right. First translation by Guy Fufeng. Why are the people starving? Because the rulers eat up the money in taxes. Therefore, the people are starving. Why are the people rebellious? Because the rulers interfere too much. Therefore, they are rebellious. Why do the people think so little of death? Because the rulers demand too much of life. Therefore, the people take death lightly. Having little to live on, one knows better than to value life too much. Stephen Mitchell's translation. When taxes are too high, people go hungry. When the government is too intrusive, people lose their spirit. Act for the people's benefit. Trust them. Leave them alone. J.H. MacDonald. When people go hungry, the government's taxes are too high. When people become rebellious, the government has become too intrusive. When people begin to view death lightly, wealthy people have too much, which causes others to starve. Only those who do not cling to their life can save it. And final translation, Ron Hogan. People starve because the government taxes them to death. People rebel because the government tries to run their lives. People act like life is meaningless because the government takes everything they have. People who know how to enjoy life are wiser than people who value their lives.
Thank you, Marla. Comments or other translations that anyone would like to shine some light here? My interpretation on the 75th, I entitled Stop Interfering. When we're imposed upon to give spiritually, we starve. This can be subtle, disguised in obligation and duty. First, we have to stop interfering in the lives of others. Second, we can then stop allowing others to interfere in our lives. We can then start allowing life to take its course without our control. Motivated by love, we begin to live free of fear, even the fear of death. Comments?
these translations sure have a different idea on that last verse. That's for sure. Well, it seems to me.
Yeah, Chris, you're exactly right. I was thinking, what? Go ahead.
Well, the discussion I thought was interesting. It's a little different yet. It says, in other words, to live life properly, we can't be obsessed by the fear of death. That's more or less, I guess, like the MacDonald translation, but it's really interesting, the difference in the translations.
Only those who do not cling to their life can save it.
Right.
Hold on a second. How about this? Whoever wills to save his life will lose it, and whoever will lose his life for me will find it. Hold on a second.
It's sort of the fear thing, right?
Yeah.
If you're in fear, you can't really live properly.
And whoever loses their life for me will find it. That's Matthew 16:25. It's saying the same thing that last phrase is saying in MacDonald. And I had a few notes on this. Was the idea that when we're empty and overtaxed spiritually, we starve. I flipped this to be thinking about this as us personally, as a person when we're taxed, rather than a government in its taxation. That when I'm empty and overtaxed spiritually, I starve. And that this is telling me that I can't interfere not only in my life, but in the lives of others. And I was thinking about how I may overtax other people in my life too, how I draw off of them in ways that make demands that aren't healthy in other people's life. Lou, you guys talk about that a lot in Al-Anon.
Yeah, that's right. And it's I think it ties into this too. You know, when we try to do too much. We're like the we get taxed by others and take it personally and resent it, and then we have our own expectations of them, and it's a spiritual swamp.
Yeah. Or too intrusive people lose their spirit is the way Mitchell said it. We demand so much in a situation that we starve out the light. Yeah,
and there's lots of demands. In Al-Anon, we have a tendency to make a lot of demands of people, of our alcoholics in our lives, and we demand they stop, we demand they slow down, we demand they go to meetings, we demand, and it puts the focus on them rather than on ourselves. And we have a phrase. The dignity of their own desperation. We rob them of the dignity of their own desperation.
That's good. Thank you.
That's good. Yeah, when you impose an opinion on somebody, you're robbing them of their dignity to feel their own feeling. There are people in addiction already want to stop, right? A lot of them. You don't need to tell them it's bad for them. I understand that.
I think the good thing that I found in recovery was never, when I came in, no one ever told me, okay, this is what you do. You do this and you do this and you do this. What they did was they said, this is how I did it. I was never given instruction. I was told, what they told me was that I had 2 ears and one mouth for a reason, that I needed to listen instead of talk. And actually, my sponsor told me he would tell me when I could talk, which was, I was a successful business guy. Nobody told me stuff like that. Go fuck yourself, that kind of thing, But I didn't, because I was hurting and I was suffering and I could not stop. So I would listen to anything at that point. So I started listening instead of telling you how to do it. I mean, when I came in, I already knew how to do everything. So I read the steps. Of course, I knew how to do that. It's easy. It's simple, So they gave me freedom to find that way.
Mhm.
Same thing I tried to do in my kids' lives as they were growing up, give them freedom, give them some direction, but give them freedom to find the way for themselves.
One of the most helpful things I got early on was somebody said to me, "You don't have to drink." That was it wasn't a shaking their finger at me or anything like that. It was allowing me to realize that maybe I don't have to. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Thank you. This one is difficult. I'd like to talk about that last phrase of Mitchell's: act for the people's benefit, trust them, leave them alone.
Mhm.
That's the opposite of what I see the rest of this talking about, the overtaxation. Craig?
So that reminds me of the way that we want to be is kind of like an autonomous society. We want to be free to be able to do what we want to do. I think the opposite of autonomous is control, which I think at the moment there is a lot of going on in the world. If people live in a society of being under control, there are two things they can do. They can either comply or they can defy. And if they're going to comply, then I think they're only going to do it for so long before they realise that, things aren't going maybe the way that they should be going under these leaderships. So things have to change, and then they start to defy. We're seeing quite a lot of that going on over here at the moment. High rises in taxes, high rises in fuel, high rises in energy costs, and it's getting to the stage where it is crippling. There's a lot of families being thrown into what they're calling fuel poverty. The average disposable income is coming down drastically now because of the price hikes. And I think it's just getting to the stage where things have to change. You're seeing a lot of wealthy people getting wealthier, and we're seeing a lot of poor people getting poorer. And I know this happens in all societies, but it just gets to the stage where I think things are going to have to change. So how much longer will the people put up with it? And in all reality, what can we really do about it?
Anyone else? I want to read these comments from Byron Katie on act for the people's benefit, trust them, leave them alone. This is a little lengthy. She says, I trust everyone. I trust them to do what they do. I am never disappointed. And since I trust people, I know to let them find their own way. The wonderful thing about inquiry is that there's no one to guide you but you. She's talking about part of her process in the work. There's no guru, no teacher who, in her great wisdom, shows you the answers. Only your own answers can help you. You yourself are the way and the truth and the light. And when you realize this, the world becomes very kind. When my daughter Roxanne attended her first workshop with me, it was in 1993 with a large group of therapists present. She was working on the mother from hell, which was how she had experienced me sometimes as she was growing up. She couldn't bear to look at me as she was doing her work. It was hard for her even to hear the sound of my voice. I was the root of her problem, she thought, and I was also her salvation. She had to ask the monster for help, which made her furious. At a certain moment, she became very passionate and got right in my face and said I should have mothered her differently. I said, that's not my job. Mother yourself, honey. You be the mother you always wanted. Later, she told me that was the greatest gift I ever gave her. It turned out to be her freedom. I know the privilege of mothering myself. It's hopeless to see it as anyone else's job. Here's what I've told all my children. You have the perfect mother. I'm responsible for all your problems, and you're responsible for the solutions. Ultimately, there's only you. You are your own suffering. You are your own happiness. What you give is what you receive. And I love that. I am always receiving for myself what I give to others. Sacrifice is not a word that holds any meaning for me, since in my experience, giving something away can't mean giving it up. When I give it to you, it's me I'm giving it to. There's no separation. Yesterday, a young woman spent 5 minutes telling me how beautiful and kind and wise I am. Her face was flushed with the joy of telling me she was in love with her story of Byron Katie. As I listened, looking into her eyes, I didn't need to say, turn it around, because that was automatically happening in me. Everything she said about me, I was seeing in her, since I can only be her reflected image. Through her thoughts, I was seeing who she was. It was her own nature she was describing. If she had told me the sad story that I've heard from others so many times, I'm lost, I'm miserable, nothing makes sense, I'm not good enough, life is unfair, how could he do that to me? I would have sat without any sadness or concern, since I know that on the deepest level, everyone realizes that it's all untrue. When someone tells a sad story, I hear a mind that believes that it believes what is not, and I am touched by the impossible attempt to make the unreal real. In this, I experience my own mind again, and I feel just as joyful as when I sit with a happy, adorable young woman of yesterday. Expectation and no expectation are the same. I expect anything to happen, and it does. I expect nothing to happen, and ultimately I'm always right. Nothing has ever happened but a thought. I expect you to love me, and however you act toward me, however you feel, the fact is that you always love me. You may think that you don't, but you can't not love me. Thoughts seem to block this awareness, and if they're stressful, I invite you to question them and set yourself free. The awakened mind is its own universe. There's nothing outside it. Delightedly, there's nothing inside it either. When mind projects as another, it only meets itself again. There can never be two. Someone said, "Hello, Katie, it's a wonderful day." How benevolent the way of it, that it would greet itself like this out of nowhere. Someone else says, "It's a terrible day." And the mind leaps with joy in the pure experience of itself. The I know mind, the mind that seems to suffer, the awesome, dear, humorous trickster will challenge the wisdom and sanity of its balanced self, and it continues to wake up. But ultimately, there's no separation. Every thought makes up the world of what it names joy, lightheartedness, inclusion, goodness, generosity, rapture, and my favorite term, friendship. Ultimately, mind becomes its own friend. Act for the people's benefit. Trust them. That's the absolute opposite of what was being done at the first. The demanding, the people taking death lightly because, they were seeing themselves as not worthy of life. She's saying we're a mirror, right? That we're getting what we're giving. She said that it was impossible for someone not to love her because she sees herself as love. That's good. You guys are quiet today. Any comments?
I was just thinking, buddy, about the J.M. McDonald translation, and I was kind of rewriting it in my head. So it was something like, when society demands too much of people, they become spiritually hungry. When other things in life take away spirit, then people long for their serenity. When they lose their serenity, they become rebellious. They don't want the world as it is anymore. They don't want the complexities and the 24/7 noise in the background. And I was thinking about it in terms of a couple of weeks ago when we talked about people, how COVID was a wake-up call, and a lot of people stepped away from their hectic and busy lives and got a quieter life and gave up some jobs and those kinds of things. And it seems like there's some connection here to that too. Maybe it's just my frame of reference, but it seems, I know for me, once I had some serenity in my life, I wasn't trying to run everybody else's life and try and be in control of the son's drinking and all that kind of stuff. And I could just concentrate on my own life. And I got some serenity. I became very jealous of it. And anytime I saw myself slipping, I crawled right back to that serenity. And so this kind of translates to me in that sense, whether it's the government, whether it's the demands of the job, demands of the 21st century, whatever those external demands are, getting caught up in them gets us caught up in those. We're in the web. We're caught in that sticky web. And the way to disengage from that is to go inside and not have the expectations of others, but to go into that serene place, that place of balance. And so that's what I was thinking about reading the J.M. McDonald one.
No, it's interesting how, thank you, Lou. It's interesting how on a personal level that works too. I mentioned earlier about, overtaxing those around me and then allowing myself to be overtaxed, allowing people to demand from me what I don't have or what I really shouldn't be giving. And knowing when, a lot of that is knowing when to say no too, and knowing what our part is in other people's lives. I have that come up at times. Craig and I had the conversation the other day about sponsees. I don't know. Craig must not be doing a good job. He's got sponsees that are going out drinking. What is that, Craig? We were talking about that. And I told Craig, I said, well, if they want to go drink, Craig, you can't stop them. You can't take the responsibility for their sobriety. That's not your job. You just share with them how you did it. And we have to have those boundaries there in our life with those we work with. There's a time to say no at times, I'll see guys come into the 9 p.m. meeting and some I see putting their number in the chat the whole time and have their number on a list and that we put out and all, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. My number's not on the list because I do give my number when I see people that I feel like I'm, that I resonate with, but I don't just give my number out to anybody.
It's funny that we had that conversation because I then went on to have the exact same conversation with somebody else that's having the exact same issue that I was having. And it is the fact that they feel responsible for people going out and relapsing or thinking, like, I'm fine, I'm fixed. I no longer have a problem. If that's the case, then carry on. On you go. But, it's not that I feel responsible for them. I feel responsible for them. I worry about them. I genuinely worry about them because I just know I have a feeling of where it's going to end. But the only thing I can do is the conclusion of the discussion was I can only be here for people. But we need to put the boundaries in place when they come back. It's a case of, right, so what did you learn from that? What was it? What more did you find out about yourself? Did you find that you could moderate anymore, or are you now serious about doing what's involved in what we do? If you're not serious in getting involved in what we do, then I'm happy to be an acquaintance, but I'm not spending my time sponsoring somebody that's not prepared to do the work, and that's just unfortunately the way it goes. There are other people, and Buddy will say it as well. Look, there are other people there that I could be using my time helping. It just is what it is. It's just one of those things that I cannot control what goes on in other people's lives. And I think this is what this verse is related to as well. The more I try to control people, the more I'm going to be pushing them away. I have to be open and receptive just to let them do what they want to do. The exact same way that I would expect people. One of my biggest issues was when people would tell me I was drinking too much. I was like, really? What's this? So I would then go off and do the absolute opposite of what people were trying to tell me for my own benefit. And I think that's how I have to handle sponsees going forward and say, look, what do you want to do? Because it's up to you. You can either do the work and I'm here for you, or you can go and do your own wee thing.
That's that gift of independence that we can give, Craig.
Mm-hmm.
Where
I give it with love.
Mhm.
There's no spite, there's no malice, there's no fuck you at the end of it. It's always a case of, look, if that's what you feel that you need to do, then carry on. There's $20. Just you go and fill your boots.
But the thing is this, though, we can share with them and then give them the freedom to make choices for themselves. And I do the same thing when I'm sponsoring. I don't know how many times I'm thinking of one thing in particular. I had a sponsee that was having a really difficult time with the mask mandate when that was going on. I don't want to wear a mask. I said, well, don't wear one. I said, just get your $1,000 ready. And when you get fined, he was in a place where he would get fined if he was out without a mask. I said, pay your money and smile while you do it. He said, well, I can't do that. I said, well, then move. I said, that's pretty much your choice. I said, but you don't have to be angry about it. You can take care of that type of thing without anger. I said, you can also go and protest something without the anger. You don't have to be angry to protest something. Just go protest if you want to. I said, but you don't have to be angry to do that. And he just couldn't get it. He kept on and on. This went on for months.
Hey, buddy, I if you don't mind, I wanted to add real quick. You said something to me earlier today that resonated with me when you said that things didn't happen by accident. And it was just this morning I found my copy of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance that I started trying to read when I was a teenager. And now I'm 53 and I still haven't read it. But the gist of that book is about classical thinking versus romantical thinking. And classical thinking being just complete logic. It is what it is. Go ahead and have fun. Go to the bar and drink, and then come talk to me afterwards. We know the results. You may need to do a little bit of experimentation, but we know the logic behind that first drink. I had to learn that logic. It's going to end in disaster for me every single time. And that I think several people have mentioned it. This verse talks about the consequences of if you overtax people, they're going to starve. It's all cause and effect stuff. And the secret to it is moving beyond that and incorporating the emotional or the romantical that they're talking about in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and finding that balance. It's all about balance. And I hope that made some kind of sense.
It's taking the next righting action, right? The next action that rights the ship, not the next correct action. Yeah. Thank you, Daniel. That's good. No one can solve our problems for us.
Hang on.
No. What, Craig?
Don't tell me I have to take responsibility for myself now. This is taking it too far.
Craig, I have to agree with what you say. I once had a sponsor who told me that before I wanted to drink, I should give him a call. And I never could understand that. I mean, why would I call my sponsor when I feel like drinking? He's only going to talk me out of it. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I have expectations for myself. And those expectations are really hard to live up to. I don't believe half of the things that I tell myself. As far as giving people advice, I don't think you can give people advice. I don't think so, because I don't listen to my own advice.
I was just flicking through Pinterest, and I was in a quote.
Craig, you're in the middle of the Dow podcast and you're flicking through Pinterest. Are you that bored?
No, you get quite a lot of stuff on Pinterest. It's not.
Oh, you got something to share with us? Okay, go ahead.
I'm looking for it again. It's lost it. One quote that sprang to mind was "Do or do not. There is no try."
Yoda, right?
Say that again.
Isn't that Yoda from Star Wars?
Yoda. And Plato came up, and Socrates, they came up with a couple of good things as well. But one was about expectations, I'm trying to find it again, but it's this big rabbit hole that you go down.
If we're expecting others to solve our problems for us, number one, when people impose on us and try to change us, it doesn't work. Two, when people are too intrusive in our lives, we lose our will to act for ourselves. We're either fighting against that or we're letting them do too much. And the way that I really do help is by just showing them how I'm walking the path, how I'm doing this thing. While I was, back to my sponsee, it was like a year later. He said, he says, I finally figured out that I don't need to be angry about these masks. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, I just need to let them do their thing. And if I don't like it, I just need to move. I said, it's about time you figured that out. I'm tired of hearing it, but I had to give him room to find that. I couldn't keep beating him over the head about it. Right. I did, lose my temper with him a little bit and I had to apologize once with him. It's the only time I ever hung up on a sponsee. I lost my temper with him and I had to make an amend, but you have to give people room to find these things for themselves every time. That's the real gift, is when we're able to do that, when we're free enough in ourselves that we allow others to be free enough to find things for themselves. We don't know what folks need. Only they know. We have to give them room to find that. Yeah, expectations are premeditated resentment, setting ourselves up for disappointment if we expect others to change, right, Lou? Right? See, I think that's where this verse arrives at. Only those who do not cling to their life can save it. Trust them, leave them alone. Let them find their own way. Yeah, my sponsor never tells me what to do. He tells me how he did it and then lets me go from there. Kerry?
I was going to say, with my kids, I read one parenting book, and I can remember the crux of it was there are two consequences, natural and logical. And if you can let your kids experience natural consequences, that's always the best. Like if they don't want to eat their food, say, fine, don't eat your food. And then when they come to you later and they're hungry and they want to eat, say, no, sorry, dinner's over. It's a natural consequence. You're going to be hungry. But then there's logical consequences where, like, you can't let them run into a street because they'll get hit by a car. That's not good. So in that case, you have to think of a logical consequence that would best meet that. I'm just trying to figure out, I get the natural consequences part and how that fits into this. It's the logical consequences part where it's like you need to prevent them from hurting themselves, where it kind of just doesn't add up for me.
Thank you, Kerry. Any other comments, guys? Yes, Chris.
My sponsor and I were talking about something yesterday, and she mentioned the idea that like alcoholism was a failed solution to a problem, control is also a failed solution. Trying to control people is a failed solution as well. So it fits into the same motive, I guess, as alcohol. And, you get sort of addicted to the idea of control.
We do the same with our life, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
We can break that down to a personal level.
Yeah.
It really is the control that, that's the way I tried to quit drinking to begin with, was control. Just attacked alcohol the way I attacked everything else. Okay, what do I need to do? And I started reading and looking at how to do this up in my head, how to exert my self-will to stop. And it didn't work. I had to have that freedom that surrender brings that I did not have. Yeah, as much as I would like to help people, I can't help them within my own power. It's impossible. When you see somebody coming in the room, it's heartbreaking sometimes. You see guys, especially, pre-COVID, when there were Now we're getting to have face-to-face meetings again, and it's really nice. But see that person come in that's just miserable, just suffering. You would love just to, help them with their suffering, right? Take that away. I know from experience, I have to give them room to find their path through that. I can't fix them. I couldn't fix my kids either. One was an addict and one not. And I couldn't fix the addict. I couldn't. I tried. Now I realized I couldn't do that. It's tough with people you love. It's tough with anyone you see. It makes me grateful. I flip that to gratitude. And I make myself available, but that's all I can do. That's all I can do. I don't have the ability to fix any of them. I can't even fix myself. How can I fix them, like Ted said, right? Yeah.
Buddy, if I don't go to church too often, but isn't that what God gives us? Free will. We do kind of the same way. He cares. He loves us. But I always hear, but he lets us make our own mistakes and our own choices. Kind of feels like that.
I've heard it put as the gift of desperation. That we're given the gift of desperation.
That's an interesting thing to say, buddy, because I've fallen down the stairs a couple of times. I've smashed up my car into a utility pole. Didn't make any difference. I thought those were my bottoms. They weren't. My bottom was I didn't want to die, period.
Yeah. We all have to find that place, right, Ted? We all have to find that. What is our gift of desperation? People tried to help me. People tried to do everything. Like in the big book, it talks about number one my first wife became more like my mother, really, just taking care of me, cleaning up my messes, trying to hold the family together, not knowing what to do. And none of that helped as much as she wanted it to help. I had to get to that point of desperation. Yeah.
Buddy, I love the heck out of my daughter. And I've told this story before. I used to keep my drinks in the garage in a paper bag. One day I went out there and my daughter had written something on one of my paper bags. Said, "Dad, please stop. Please stop. It's starting to affect me. Please do something about this." So took the bottle out of the bag, crumpled up the bag, and threw it away. Sometimes enough just ain't enough. People say enough is enough already, Ted. No, it's not. You have to find it for yourself, that's for sure. I mean, you can't give advice to anybody. Like I said, I don't even listen to my own advice sometimes. So I think that this time around, I just didn't want to die, period. Very selfish.
Well, we have to realize too, Ted, that we have to do the same for others. And then after we're past the alcohol, then we've got the rest of our life. That if we'd like the same relief in the rest of our life, like we got with alcohol, how do we do this? Well, we have to surrender in those other ways that we are acting emotionally drunk. We have to do the same thing in other areas of our life. We have to surrender those. We have to come to a bottom in those to where we quit meddling in others' lives. We don't allow them to meddle in ours. We take responsibility and we find freedom. The way I find freedom and take responsibility normally means that I turn my life around and give others what I want from them. Like Byron Katie was talking about. She gives love, so all she gets back is love. It doesn't matter how they behave toward her. She said they can't help it but show her love because that's all she expects back, because that's all she's giving. I think that's the whole point of acting for the people's. How do you act for the people's benefit? You trust them and leave them alone. That's a way of love when you give people that kind of freedom. We're definitely a mirror. We get back what we give. If I want to influence others, the best thing I can do, trust them and show them what I want. which is I want love back. So I need to be loving them. I want everyone to be kind to me. So what does that mean? My behavior's got to be. I got to give kindness, right? If I want kindness back. I save my life by giving my life away. That's just how it works. We learn that in recovery. You know, if we want to, nothing works like intensive work with another alcoholic when we want to drink, right? We're giving away what we want. We don't impose on others for anything. We don't expect them to meet our needs. We give them what we want back. Starts with our action. Well, we'll close there. You guys have a great week, and we will see you next week. We'll have Sensei next week. We'll see you then.
Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.